I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another bonus episode of Old's Oscar Countdown with the SAG Award nominations just happening again. It seems like we are in the midst of award season. It's been a weird year because we haven't seen a lot of these movies because they've been delayed, the award shows, so it's had a different calendar this year, but it seems to be that things are starting to pick up. You guys have been showing a lot of support for my nominations predictions and then my nominations reactions video, which was uploaded yesterday. But the news doesn't stop, which means I don't stop, and I want to give you my reactions, thoughts, and analysis of the SAG Award nominations and how that will impact the rest of the award season, because the nominations in so many ways will tell us they're so much more interesting than, say, the winners, because sometimes the winners are a foregone conclusion, but the nominations are very much in flux. And for a year that we didn't really know what the big Oscar movies are, it was sort of hard to tell. We did pretty well though, got about 70%. Did very well, and particularly in the bigger categories for the nominations predictions of the Golden Globes. But the Golden Globes are run by about 80 people, 90 people that have their own opinion, whereas the Oscars, the Academy, is made up of thousands of members, of industry members, and if you don't know, essentially they also have oftentimes their own guild. So in this case, the Screen Actors Guild, in which a bunch of actors who are part of the guild, and many actors vote on their favorite performances of the year. And then we have all these different other industry awards, and oftentimes members of those awards and guilds are members of the Academy as well, so we see a lot of overlap versus something that we don't see overlap for the Golden Globes. So in many ways the SAG Awards can tell us a lot, that they do their own sort of thing, but they do still tell us a lot about what will get nominated and what could win. So that will be very crucial in a couple categories. And with the nominations, there were some definite surprises which I'm going to break down, but similar to my Golden Globe nominations reactions video, I'm going to start off the top here with my winners and losers, and then jumping into a category by category breakdown of the snubs, the surprises, and what this means ultimately for the Oscar race. So starting off with the winners, I think the big winner here was from Minari. Minari gets in for Best Ensemble, gets in for Steven Yeun, and gets it for Yu Jun-yun. At the Globes, we were a little bit concerned about them because they didn't get in for Steven Yeun, didn't get in for even something maybe like screenplay or Yu Jun-yun, and it was a little bit disappointing. But it's also worth noting that that's the Golden Globes. They don't have that overlap with the Academy. So the Academy, the first sign of what we've seen is that they do like it. And this is always a strong sign because the acting branch is the largest branch within the Academy. So the SAG, what the actors nominate as the best performances, and the movies that they like often have a good chance of also getting nominated. So the fact that Minari got in here for both Steven Yeun and Yu Jun-yun, but more importantly I think for Best Cast and Ensemble, I think that's really crucial for its chances ultimately of getting a Best Picture nominee. Now that's not necessarily saying Lee Isaac Chung will get in for Best Director, or even Steven Yeun or Yu Jun-yun will get in for the respective categories, but it does have a good sign for Minari as a whole, that the movie is well liked, that it is supported from the acting branch, and that does help a lot in terms of getting nominations. Then another winner is Jared Leto. He got nominated in Best Supporting Actor for The Little Things. This was a off-the-wall kind of a weird performance and a movie that we didn't think would be in the Oscar conversation. It seems that, but it does seem like Warner Brothers is pushing him, and this performance has definitely resonated. He's doing a lot. He's put on a little bit of weight. He's walking with a limp. He barely blinks in the movie. He's playing a serial killer. So it is sort of a prototypical kind of Oscar-type baity performance, but it is very much still in a genre movie, in a movie that is not super critically well acclaimed. So it's interesting to see him show up at the Globes, and then also surprise again the next day here and show up and get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. We'll break down the Best Supporting Actor category, but Jared Leto right now is seeming like, oh, we didn't really consider this, but seemingly he's definitely a contender. Then into my losers, the big unfortunate loser of the day was Amanda Seyfried. She did not get nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Mank, despite her being the presumptive frontrunner to win this category, which is pretty crucial for her not to get nominated. Now that's not to say she won't win, but just I guess also more generally in terms of the movie itself, Mank, which did so well at the Golden Globes. Here, maybe we're getting a little bit more of an industry taste that maybe they don't like it as much. Now, they still gave Gary Oldman the nomination, but it didn't get in for Best Ensemble, so that definitely knocks it down a few places. And Amanda Seyfried, which was sort of the critical darling, and along with someone like Maria Bakalova, and just the assumptive industry. This is Amanda Seyfried in a movie that should be well-liked, playing a real-life Hollywood actress. It's sort of the perfect role. She should not only get nominated, but very well has a good chance to win. to not getting nominated at all, that is surprising to say the least, and will influence if she wins in other categories, how the race shapes out. And in a race where we thought, at least I did, that it was sort of, she was a very clear frontrunner and I couldn't really see anyone else winning. Now it seems to be wide open because of that lack of nomination. But we'll break down the supporting actress category later on. And then also jumping off on that fact is that Ellen Burstyn for Pieces of a Woman, who was also a presumptive nominee in the supporting actress race, didn't get nominated at the Globes, also didn't get nominated here. Pieces of a Woman in general hasn't been as well received as maybe the Netflix and the filmmakers hoped. So it seems like Ellen Burstyn may be on the outside. That, you know, there's certain movies and certain performances that maybe you see it on Gold Derby, or maybe you hear other people say, hey, this is definitely a contender. But you have to look at the data, you have to look at what you've been presented with. And even though someone like Ellen Burstyn has been presented to us as, okay, maybe she could get nominated, didn't get in the Globes, which was very surprising, didn't get in here for SAG, so even if she gets in for BAFTA, she's one of those people where I feel less confident in putting in my final Oscar predictions, and it's a big hit to her, but also in relation, I think, to Vanessa Kirby for Pieces of a Woman, a performance that I thought could potentially win. Now the fact that Ellen Burstyn isn't even getting nominated for Pieces of a Woman, maybe they just don't like that movie as much, and therefore will hurt, say, Vanessa Kirby's chances of ultimately getting maybe a nomination or, you know, a win in that category. But just jumping into the categories, cast in a motion picture, so this is the Ensemble Award. Sometimes it's very crucial. For example, Parasite won it last year, but then, you know, a couple of years ago, The Shape of Water wasn't even nominated, yet it ultimately won Best Picture. So it's a little bit of a hit or miss category in terms of predicting Best Picture. What it does tell us is the support, and oftentimes, every single year, regardless of what gets nominated and what wins, the Best Picture winner that I found always has acting support. So Parasite won last year, and it won the Ensemble Award, but the main part is that it had acting support. It had the Actors Branch, which is the largest branch of the Academy, the support behind it. And you can go back further and further and further, whether it be 2019, 2018, something like Green Book had the Mahershala Ali win. Shape of Water didn't get in for SAG Ensemble, yet it also had 3 acting nominations. So there are these elements where, even though it maybe doesn't get in for Ensemble, if it does have acting nominations and does have acting support, that gives it a strong chance of ultimately winning Best Picture, or at least giving it a chance to win Best Picture. So To Five Bloods was one that was a surprise here in this category. It's a movie that has been doing well in terms of AFI and a couple of these sort of critical/industry groups. Didn't do very well at the Golden Globes, but that being said, this is ultimately, if we're looking at the Oscars, this is Old's Oscar countdown. Getting in here is a big sign and a big boost for The Five Bloods. That being said, it's still also hard to read as a movie. We'll talk about that a little bit later with the Chadwick nomination. Ma Rainey was good to see here. Both Ma Rainey and One Night Miami definitely needed this sort of reaffirmation of getting in here, which they did. The Trial of Chicago 7, I think, seems to be the front runner right now as it starts to pick up momentum. Some people think maybe it's No Man's Land, but I'm looking at past Oscar history, and I'm looking at sort of the content and the sort of grandiose and triumphant versions of so many of these more recent movies and recent winners for Best Picture. Also, like I mentioned, the acting support. Something like Nomadland may only have 1 acting nomination and didn't get in for Ensemble here, so that took a hit. Even though it wasn't expected to get nominated, the fact that it still didn't, it is telling, versus Trial of Chicago 7, which seems to be getting in everywhere. And then I mentioned Minari at the top of the show. Definitely a huge success here, getting in, and that not only maybe doesn't necessarily boost its chances for Steven Yeun or Yu Jung-yeon, but definitely boosts its chances for getting a Best Picture nomination. I think this is really critical in seeing that connection. And then No Mank is unfortunate, and maybe we'll see this more and more with the industry awards. Maybe it gets shut out at BAFTA, maybe Gary Oldman misses, and things like that, and it's not the sort of runaway front runner in terms of getting all these nominations. So I still think it will get a lot of nominations, including a lot of the technical nominations, but it's not a slam dunk anyway to win Best Picture, and I think its chances of winning is gone down, even though it should get, I think, still nominated, and I'm not too worried about it missing out in this category. Then we have male actor in a leading role or motion picture. The big surprise is Delroy Lindo, I think. We thought this was sort of the only nomination for Da 5 Bloods, that if Da 5 Bloods were to do well, it would be, at the very least, Delroy Lindo. But the fact that he didn't get in for the Golden Globes, the fact that he didn't get in here for SAG, we just have to read the tea leaves and say, even though this should be a performance that they like, seemingly they don't. Seemingly they're more confident in going with someone like, you know, the 4 that are pretty confident seems to be like Riz Ahmed, Anthony Hopkins, Gary Oldman and Chadwick Boseman. And then that fifth slot is up in the air. Maybe you still believe that, hey, it could still be Delroy, but right now it seems to be in that slot of maybe Steven Yeun, or maybe a surprise with someone like Tom Hanks. But that fifth slot is very much up for grabs. But it is interesting to see that the acting branch does like Minari a lot, and Steven Yeun is the most recognizable name from that movie, so I would be surprised if he does get the nomination. Then we have female actor in a leading role or motion picture. A couple surprises here. I guess the big one is Amy Adams for Hillbilly Elegy. This is a performance from an actress who is very well liked, who has a lot of SAG nominations. And you may read it, oh, that's kind of like a sappy awards movie that wasn't critically liked, but clearly has done well with the industry awards. And she is an actress that's very well liked, but on the outset when I'm looking at it, I still go, oh, it's a big kind of showy performance. I think it's going to be a little bit more divisive within the larger Academy, and I'm not exactly sure if she will get nominated. This definitely feels like we really like Amy Adams a lot, SAG kind of a situation, so we're going to nominate her the same way when they nominate Emily Blunt a couple times, and then ultimately she doesn't get any nominations. I think this is a similar situation with Amy Adams. She's in a sort of an Oscar baity kind of a movie, admittedly in a very good performance, and does very well, as she always does. I'm a huge Amy Adams fan, but it seems to be in this case where this is going to be an outlier. And then for me, I think the top four are pretty solidified, though. I still think that Carey Mulligan will get in for Promising Young Woman, Viola Davis for Ma Rainey's, Frances McDormand for Nomadland, and in my opinion, I think that final slot goes to Andra Day for The United States v. Billie Holiday. That's a movie that has been in the Oscar conversation, maybe getting in for Best Original Song. Of course, Andra Day also got nominated at the Golden Globes. She has been campaigning, versus Zendaya and Malcolm and Marie, where Malcolm and Marie hasn't been doing as well, didn't get any Golden Globe nominations, didn't get any nominations here. So that was maybe another situation where Zendaya, we thought maybe could be a contender, and I think still is, but her momentum is definitely decreasing, where Andra Day, even though she didn't get in the nomination here, that ultimately went to Amy Adams for Hillbilly Elegy. I still think that Amy Adams' situation is a little bit more of a SAG bias, and Andra Day has a little bit more of a stronger film in terms of potentially getting nominated in multiple nominations, costume design, Best Original Song, things like that. So that will sort of take her over the edge, and has a little bit more of a prototypical Oscar performance in the sense that she's singing, playing a real life person. So Zendaya is definitely falling, and I have a little bit more confidence that Andra Day will get in there. But that being said, Andra Day didn't make the BAFTA shortlist, so she's not going to get nominated for Best Lead Actress at the BAFTAs. So we're going to go into the Oscar night going, okay, well, Amy Adams got the SAG, maybe Zendaya picks up a BAFTA nomination, but it also could be a situation where, say, Amy Adams picks up BAFTA. Well, now you have SAG, BAFTA, well, what else are you going to go back off of? So it's going to be an interesting situation to see what's that fifth slot, what you believe in. Will you sort of make an interesting choice? Will BAFTA shake things up? Will they nominate Zendaya? And it'll be this sort of awkward three-way carousel where you're not sure who will get nominated in that fifth slot. But that's what makes Oscar race so interesting, and we'll still have to follow that race as it continues. Then I have male actor in a supporting role. So you have Sacha Baron Cohen, which makes sense. The big surprise I mentioned at the top of the show, Jared Leto. But the other sort of notable mention, and I'll talk about this in The Five Bloods, is Chadwick Boseman. That Chadwick Boseman got nominated here for The Five Bloods. He also got nominated for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And this is a situation where we may go, oh, is this going to be the presumptive sort of nominee? Will Chadwick get nominated twice? He very well could. We thought it would be Delroy Lindo for The Five Bloods, but instead it could be Chadwick Boseman. But this race, I think, is very hard to decipher and distinguish, and I'll give you some of the reasons and the reason why I'm a little bit wishy-washy on it. On the one hand, SAG loves to nominate dual actors, meaning one actor in the same year for two different categories. They did it last year with Scarlett Johansson, who ultimately got 2 nominations at the Oscars. The year before that, Emily Blunt. So it's happened a few times, specifically more recently, and I think it's happened 3 other times this decade. So it's something that the SAGs love to do. Nominate one person who they just really like in both categories because they've had such a great year, and they won't sort of pick one. They'll like to reward both. So in that case, I go, well, this is a SAG thing. Chadwick's not going to get nominated for the Oscars. But then again, last year, Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit, it seemed like, oh, maybe it was a SAG thing that they got the double nomination. And it turned out, nope, Scarlett Johansson got nominated for Marriage Story and Jojo Rabbit. So that could be a scenario here. So it's hard to see which is which. It's also important to note that I think the 4 have been really solidified in Daniel Kaluuya, in Leslie Odom Jr., Sacha Baron Cohen. I guess, yeah, those 3 are probably the most solidified, and then maybe even Jared Leto with the Golden Globe nomination and with the SAG nomination. Maybe he's this sort of, we have to accept that he's in there. But that's still, that 4th and 5th slot is very confusing to see, because I'm not sure it's going to be exactly someone like Paul Raci for Sound of Metal. I mean, Sound of Metal is a movie that won't get nominated for Best Picture, that needs critic groups and industry groups like SAG to reward an actor like Paul Raci. So the fact that he didn't get in here really concerns me, because I really enjoy that performance, but also just as a prognosticator. Then someone like Bill Murray from On the Rocks, that's a movie that's definitely declining, and him not getting in here definitely hurts him. Stanley Tucci for Supernova was another name that I thought may be possible, but SAG I thought was a slam dunk for a nomination for him, and the fact that he didn't get that nomination, and the fact that Supernova really hasn't gotten any attention at all, means it's not really sticking with voters' minds. So maybe he's out of the race, and then you go with it and you go, okay, well, who is it? Maybe it's Mark Rylance for Trial of Chicago 7, maybe it's a long shot, maybe it really is Jared Leto. I mean, he was a long shot a couple weeks ago, but now seems to be like the only consistent person, along with the Daniel Kaluuyas and the Sacha Baron Cohen. So it'll be fascinating to see how this race shapes out. I definitely want to see the BAFTA awards and what that tells us, but it's going to be very interesting to see what this category shapes out to be. I'd love to see someone like Paul Raci get in, but him not getting in here I think is a huge blow to Sound of Metal and his chances of getting in. And Chadwick Boseman for Da 5 Bloods, it may have switched. It may be, we thought it was going to be Delroy Lindo, but instead it's going to be Chadwick Boseman. Then supporting actress, Maria Bakalova getting in here. I was very sort of nervous about, will they really want to nominate her? It's a comedy. They don't traditionally nominate comedic performances. She's new. Borat 2, is it going to be too crude for the members? But clearly with Globes and now with SAG, she seems to be a lock. Of course, winning a lot of critics groups as well, along with Amanda Seyfried. So it seems like she's definitely in there, along with, I would say, Glenn Close, who I've always been a believer in, Olivia Colman. And then the others are sort of up in the air. I still think Amanda Seyfried should get nominated. I think this was sort of a one-off situation. If we look at this category, and I mentioned at the top about Amanda Seyfried, but if we look at previous years, the last time someone didn't get nominated and won was just a couple of years ago with Regina King. We have to remember, Regina King was not nominated for SAG nomination, yet ultimately won this category for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars. So that could be a situation with Amanda Seyfried. But also, it's worth noting that aside from that one time, this decade, 9 out of the 10 winners of the SAG Supporting Actress also won the Oscars. So that's a really crucial stat. Except for the one time where Regina King missed out, the winners of every single other one of the SAG's Supporting Actors ultimately went on to win at the Oscars. And you have to go all the way back to 2007 for a situation where they didn't, where Ruby Dee was rewarded, yet ultimately went to Tilda Swinton for Michael Clayton. So they're pretty accurate, and particularly this past decade, particularly in this category, they're very accurate. So maybe Amanda Seyfried's in here, but this lack of a nomination may have just killed her chances of actually winning the award. I mentioned Yoo Jun-young getting in here from Minari. This is good because if her comparison is Zhao Shuzhen for The Farewell, another sort of unknown Asian actress who's introducing themselves, Zhao Shuzhen did not get nominated at SAG, so that was a sign that, maybe she won't get nominated at the Oscars, or maybe they just don't know her, or maybe they're too afraid to nominate her because they don't want to spell her name. So it's good for Yoo Jun-young to get nominated here for Minari and have that sort of sign and strength of support saying, we know how to spell your name, we like you, the acting branch is behind this movie, and are willing to nominate you. So that's a big sign for her and her chances. And then Helena Zengel, who I predicted all the way back in my supporting actress video, who would be contender, and she's proven to be, as I predicted, getting in for Golden Globes, getting in for here, and has really proven herself to be a serious contender for this category. So I think she's becoming a little bit more and more like a lock every single day, because they always like these sort of younger actresses. This is a common theme that they do. So I wouldn't be surprised if she gets in. And then finally, there was the stunt nominations. Nothing necessarily surprising, and there's no stunt award at the Oscars, unfortunately. But the big one takeaway, I think, is that maybe Da 5 Bloods got in, which was not all that surprising, but Trial of Chicago 7, which I didn't even think was eligible, got in for stunts, which was fascinating. So that just proves that in my opinion, as we're looking at the Oscars, as we're looking at the Best Picture race, Trial of Chicago 7 is getting in everywhere. Everywhere it needs to be. There's no upsets. It's not actually, it's surprising in a couple categories, getting for stunts, maybe the Golden Globes, getting in for Best Original Song, and it's sort of consistently getting in everywhere it needs to be, and seems to be, well, maybe not officially declared, in my opinion, the front runner right now to win Best Picture at the Oscars. But you never know. We have to watch and see who wins these categories, what happens, who gets nominated, who gets snubbed, and that's why I subscribe to this channel for all things award shows. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Comment below. Let me know your predictions. How well did you do? Stay tuned for Monday, where I give my predictions on the cinematography and animated feature predictions, back to our normal scheduled programming, and then I'm going to continue to break down the Oscar categories as we get into more of the technical categories. And once again, when we have these big awards like DGA and BAFTA and things like that, I will give my reactions to them when they come in sort of these mini bonus episodes. But I'm doing these mini bonus episodes, so I'd love for you to smash that like button and really show your support for the show. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, stay tuned.